What's up guys? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Emma if you're new here, and I love to talk about all things Peloton and fitness, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss future videos. Today I'm going to be talking about Power Zone training on the Peloton. I really like Power Zone training, and I think that a lot of people do on the Peloton, but I also think it's overlooked by a lot of people that have the bike, so I thought I would just talk about it and tell you what it's all about in this video and how you can go about Power Zone training. So Power Zone training is a class that's offered by Peloton, and in a Power Zone class, the instructor will tell you to go at specific zones instead of saying a specific resistance and cadence. So there'll be zones 1 through 7, and at all times the instructor will be saying you're supposed to be in zone 3, zone 4, etc. And these zones are based on your own fitness. So you take a fitness test, and based on those results, it'll break you into the zones for you and you ride in those zones. So this is very personalized training, and it's great if you want to raise your endurance, if you want to get stronger, or if you just want to improve your overall performance. This is very personalized training compared to the other classes where it is the same resistance and cadence for everyone. This is very specific to your goals and your fitness. There are currently 4 cycling instructors that offer Power Zone classes: Matt Wilpers, Dennis Morton, Christine Duracol, and Olivia Amato. Personally, Matt Wilpers is my favorite, but I think with these 4 instructors, there's kind of something for everyone, and you should try out all the instructors to see who you like the best. The most important part of the Power Zone training is having the correct zones. So how you do this is you take an FTP test that's offered on Peloton. This test is just a 20-minute long class where you're trying to achieve the highest output possible, and there's really not going to be any cadence or resistance suggestions. You need to figure out how you can optimize your performance. For me personally, I find that I raise the resistance really high and have a low cadence, and that's how I can personally get my highest output. Other people, it might be the opposite. They want a lower resistance but higher cadence. It's very personalized to you, and as you take more of these tests, you'll get more used to it and know what to do. The highest output should represent your peak fitness, so you want to make sure that you had breakfast or lunch or food basically before you take it, that you are in a really good mood, that you probably took a rest day yesterday. I personally just took the FTP test, I think for the 3rd or 4th time this past Monday. I took a rest day on Sunday, which I don't usually do, but I wanted to be in peak physical performance. And it's also recommended that you take a 10-minute FTP warm-up. You don't want to go cold into the actual test because you're trying to get your peak output, so you don't want to waste time warming up. You should do that before the actual test. The FTP score is not actually a Peloton specific number. It's used in actual cycling, and it's supposed to represent your best output for 1 hour, but Peloton kind of knows that nobody wants to do that for an hour. That'll be really hard, so they just do it for 20 minutes and then subtract 5% off your total output to represent that you could do that for the whole hour. Also, the first FTP test is always the hardest. Mine was personally really bad. I just didn't know how to pace myself at all for the 20 minutes of the class, so I went out way too hard at the beginning and then really suffered at the end. I think once you take it once, that'll easily be your worst, and even the second time you can kind of follow along where you were on the previous ride if you actually have the Peloton and it can track the old rides, just because you kind of know what you should be looking for. I also suggest you could kind of look and see what the average output was for a 20-minute or 30-minute ride that you did that you thought went well, and try to align with that. So if your PR for a 30-minute ride was 150 output average, try to aim for that 150 output average or higher during your FTP test. But once you do one FTP test, you can kind of base your future FTP tests off of that and just try to beat that score while also pacing yourself for the entire 20 minutes. Finally, it's suggested that you retake the test every 6 to 8 weeks, or when you feel like your fitness has changed. So after you take the test, there's a lot of Power Zone rides. So if you feel like your zones are getting too easy for those rides and you don't think the rides are challenging enough, that's probably a really good sign that you should retake your test and that your fitness has changed and you've improved. And vice versa, if you've taken some time off the bike, if you had an injury and you come back and the zones are just way too hard for the classes, that's also a sign that you should retake the test. Even if it's a lower FTP score, it'll be better for you in the long run because you want that personalized training. So you don't want a number that's inaccurate to your fitness at the current moment. Once you've taken the FTP test, you'll get a number of your total output. If you actually own the Peloton, it's very easy. After your test, it'll ask if you want to apply the new number to your power zone, and you just say yes, and it'll automatically break it into your 7 zones. And in any future ride, whether it is power zone or not, you'll see it under your output what zone you're in at all times. So that's really nice, and it'll also tell you what the ranges of each zone are. So it's very, very easy if you have the Peloton to just get your zones. But if you don't have a Peloton, you can still calculate your zones. You just have to take the total output that you got for the 20-minute ride that you should be able to get from whatever bike you have. And then once you have your number, you can do 2 things. I actually found a website that I'll link down below that you can type in your number and then it'll calculate the zones for you. But if you want to do it by hand and actually do the math, or you're just interested to see how the zones are separated, I can tell you right now. So first you take your total output and then you subtract by 5%, or you can just times it by 95%. So that is your actual FTP score, and that is what we talked about earlier, where we're changing it from 20-minute output to an hour output, so we're subtracting the 5%. So once you have your FTP score, Zone 1, which is classified as very easy, is 0 to 55% of that FTP score. Zone 2, which is classified as moderate, is 56 to 75% of the FTP score. Zone 3, which is classified as sustainable, and you should be able to ride this for over an hour, although conversation can be difficult, is 76% to 90%. Zone 4, which is classified as challenging and should be only sustainable for an hour max, is 91% to 105%. Zone 5, which is classified as hard and should only be sustainable for 10 to 15 minutes max, is 106% to 120% of your FTP score. Zone 6, which is classified as very hard, should only be sustainable for 30 seconds to maybe 5 minutes, is 121 to 150%. And then Zone 7, which is super hard, only sustainable for a couple of seconds, should be greater than 151% of your FTP score. And I can definitely say that I find my zones 1 to 3 fairly easy. Zone 4 is kind of hard, and then anything zone 5 or above, I'm panting, I'm sweating, it's a hard workout. If you don't actually have the Peloton, I suggest writing this down on a post-it note and just putting it on your bike or somewhere you can see these zones so that they're easy to reference while you're riding. Once you have all your zones figured out, this is where the fun part comes, the personalized training. So there's all kinds of different power zone classes, but they're kind of grouped into 3 different classifications. So there's the Power Zone Endurance Ride. I've seen endurance rides as short as 30 minutes and as long as 90 minutes, and they'll mostly rotate between Zone 2 and Zone 3, which is fairly easy, but if you do that for 90 minutes, it's definitely a workout and it will build up your endurance. So it's really good if you're training for a half marathon, a marathon, anything that's sustaining cardio for a long time. This is really great for training, and it's also good for your overall health. For the 90-minute rides, Matt Wilpers teaches a lot of those, and he really stresses being hydrated, having electrolytes, eating something during the ride. It's a long ride, but it's a really good workout. Then there's just regular power zone classes, and these typically range between zones 3 and zone 6. Usually it'll mostly be in zone 3 with pushes in zones 4, 5, and 6. So this is definitely more of a HIIT workout, but there's less of a recovery. So zone 3 is still a workout. It's not as easy as zone 1, but then your pushes might not be as intense compared to the final ride, which is the Power Zone Max ride, which mostly focuses on zone 3 to zone 7. In my personal experience, I found that the recovery is really easy. It's usually only in zone 1 or zone 2, but then the pushes are going to be in zone 6 or zone 7. It's a very hard ride, very much a HIIT workout. You're going very intense on the pushes and then you pull back a lot for the recovery. So I really recommend a mix of all of these rides to get the most out of Power Zone training, but I feel like most people have a personal preference. I really like the endurance rides. I like the long rides, but I think that there's still value in doing the regular Power Zone rides and the Power Zone Max rides too. If you're not sure what the Power Zone ride focuses on, the description is actually super useful, I think, compared to other rides on the Peloton. It will tell you exactly what zones the ride will focus on, so it should be a pretty clear description of what to expect from the class. There's also an entire program Peloton's put together called Discover Your Zones. I personally have not done it, but it is a 4-week program where you start out with an FTP test and then do all kinds of power zone rides that look like a really great introduction to the type of class it is. And then at the end of the 4 weeks, there is another FTP test so you can see if you've improved, and I guarantee you will have improved if you've taken 4 weeks of power zone rides in between. That's all I have to say about Power Zone rides. I really like them. I think it's a great thing that Peloton offers for you to build your strength and have training that's very personal to you compared to the other classes. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know down below if you've tried Power Zone training, if you want to try it, and who your favorite instructor is. I hope you guys are having an awesome week, staying safe, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!